In our top story this hour, is the U.S. planning to bomb Iran? Now, a U.K. newspaper is reporting that the U.S. is shipping close to 400 bombs to the British Isle of Diego Garcia. That's in the Indian Ocean, that would be poised to do just that, possibly preparing to attack Iran's nuclear facilities if sanctions fail. Now, here to talk about this possibility is Brian Becker, National Coordinator with the Answer Coalition. Brian, thank you for being here. Now, do you think the U.S. is trying to scare Iran, or do you think the U.S. is really poised to possibly attack Iran?
Well, I think it could be both. The United States has used the bunker buster bombs. Prior to the Iraq War, they detonated a 21,000-pound bomb designed to terrorize the Iraqis just a week before the invasion in 2003. They use fuel-air explosives, another massive conventional weapon, but although not nuclear, one that does great, horrific damage. It's possible that this story, leaked by the UK newspaper, the Scotland Herald, was designed to put more pressure on Iran, to intensify the anxiety, to increase the overall tension within the leadership and inside the country. But it could also possibly be a preparation for an attack against Iran. We can't disguise the fact or not notice the fact that the Obama administration, although it had pledged to start afresh with Iran a year ago when it came into office, has escalated the rhetoric against Iran, has imposed new sanctions against Iran, has done everything possible, it seems, to make a normalization of relations with Iran impossible. And at the same time, Iran is facing Israel, a regional adversary that has admittedly, or recognized by all international experts, 250 nuclear weapons. So this could be part of the full-court press on Iran.
Okay, but the U.S. is already involved in 2 wars in the Middle East. The U.S. is deploying war troops there. Even reserves are deployed, spending billions of dollars every few days. Is Obama really ready to get involved in a third conflict?
Well, I think if the Obama administration were to do that, it would be a catastrophic failure for the United States. Of course, it would impose great suffering on Iran. These bunker buster bombs do horrific damage. But if the U.S. was to engage a third military conflict when it's bogged down in losing the war in Afghanistan, trying to get out of Iraq, or at least get out with its 100,000 troops, maybe bringing it down to 50,000, I think fighting a war against Iran, a country of 80 million people, would be a catastrophic failure for the U.S. But as former presidents have said, the U.S. military sometimes is mad. So there's a lot of pressure on the Obama administration as well. Well,
who stands to benefit from attacking Iran, and who would be involved?
Well, I think of course, the regional adversary in the Middle East for Iran is Israel. They would certainly be delighted by an attack by the United States on Iran. I think the munitions companies, the war manufacturers, the biggest businesses in America make these munitions. They make record profits even while the rest of the economy is sinking. The military-industrial complex grows and grows and grows. In other words, war is good business. I think for the people of the region, I think for the people of Iran, for the people of the United States, such an attack would be a colossal catastrophe, a humanitarian disaster, and could only backlash against the United States.
Okay, I want to ask you, earlier you mentioned the rhetoric. Now, this rhetoric of nuclear weapons and the threat of the possibility of Iran building them, it has been compared to weapons of mass destruction that George W. Bush was talking about before attacking Iraq in 2003. What do you think about that comparison?
Well, I think it's a good comparison because the United States government knew in 2003 that Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction. Iraq had been a hobbled country, 13 years of sanctions, weapons inspectors all over that country. In the case of Iran, the United States knows, and its own agencies, its own intelligence agencies report, Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. Iran says it doesn't want nuclear weapons, that it's developing nuclear energy for civilian purposes. And the main oversight agency, the IAEA, says that Iran is cooperating with international standards. So this is a fabrication by the United States, just as they fabricated the myth that Iraq was on the road to weapons of mass destruction. Why? To create fear. And fear is then used as a pretext to carry out either sanctions or war. And from a technical point of view, sanctions are war. Depriving people of food, medicine, the things that you need to live, that's an act of war.
And we'll have to wait and see what exactly these bombs being moved to this island will do and what the U.S. will do, and if this really is the boogeyman, the threat of Iran's nuclear
Well, the American people will be
capabilities.
out in the streets this Saturday saying no war against Iran, stop the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. So we see a backlash right here at home as well.
And I'm sure we will be covering it here on RT. And until then, we mentioned Iran, we mentioned sanctions against Iran. One country that is not backing the U.S. efforts to put more sanctions forward is China.